SugarCubeZ, and I've never built a PC before. I'm not an expert, I don't claim to be, but hopefully by the end of this video, I will be. I've been saving up for a couple of months now, and the big day is finally here, so hopefully I don't make one mistake that ends up screwing me out of over £1,000. Also, I'm aware that this is a Minecraft channel, so a PC building video isn't something that I'd usually post, but too bad, you have to watch anyway. Hey, Sugar from the future here. Isn't it funny how voiceovers work? Anyway, here are my parts. I'll put the price of all of them on screen and pans because that's how we do things in Britain. Anyway, the first thing you do with a new PC is get the motherboard ready. I'm going for an all-white build because I'm a girl, and girls are only allowed pink and white things. Same goes for guys. They can only have black and blue. Don't get mad at me, get mad at the law. Sorry, just joking. I thought it would look cool. But who really cares about the motherboard? I didn't pay £275 for this piece of metal, I just wanted the cool stickers. And these cable ties. Oh my god, would you look at that beauty? Maybe I should care about it. The first thing that goes in is a CPU. I got the i5-12600K. If this doesn't make me a better gamer, then I don't know what will. It was surprisingly hard to get out of the box. I tried being civilized but had to resort to tearing it open. And here we go, in it slides. Congratulations to me, I didn't mess up the first step. There's me peeling off the protective sticker. I thought it was satisfying so I left it in. There's another protective sticker, but it's not as cool. Oh, that was nice though. The next step is putting in the RAM. I got 16GB of 3600MHz CL18 Corsair Vengeance RAM. You'll see a lot of stuff in this build is Corsair, and honestly, I didn't really plan it to be that way. When picking up parts, it just kind of sort of happened. As this is my first time build, I felt more comfortable picking parts from companies I know a bit about, and I just happen to really like Corsair's products. It does also mean I can sync the RGB really easily using one software, cause come on, I didn't spend this much money for it to look ugly. For storage, I'm using a terabyte of the Samsung 970 EVO Plus. It's really fast, much better than a hard drive, and also easy to install. Well, that's what I thought until I met this tiny grey screw. Taking the heatsink off was really easy, but I was a bit confused on the exact logistics of getting the SSD in because it wasn't really like the tutorials I'd watched and I couldn't find a clear one for this motherboard. So I just screamed at it for about 30 minutes until it just worked out for me, which is usually how things tend to go. Most people put the CPU, RAM and SSD in first because the motherboard doesn't need to be in the case for that and it's generally just easier. One thing I heavily underestimated was how difficult it would be to get the motherboard into the case, which by the way I'm using the Corsair 4000D Airflow. I don't know why they feel the need to cater to the French. My motherboard is a lot heavier than you think, especially around the rear I/O, which is where everything plugs into because it has this big cover on which looks awesome but is also pure metal. I was trying to keep my fingers on the side because I needed to slot the rear I/O into the opening on the motherboard while also trying not to scratch the bottom on the case as it could ruin the board. But the width of the case was not helping and space was really tight and I kept getting weighed down by the heavy part when trying to reposition my hands. Luckily we have the magic of editing, so to you guys it looks like I spent 30 seconds on this step. Yay! Here I'm just prepping my CPU cooler. I use the Corsair Capellix h100i which requires a backplate to be attached, so here's me just sticking it on and screwing in the standoffs. I'm using an AIO, which means it's an all-in-one. There's liquid cooling for the CPU with a radiator that the water runs through to cool it down and some fans which I'm attaching to it now before I install because at this bit I wasn't sure what to do next, so I thought I'd chill out a bit by organising screws and screwing some fans onto the radiator. Look at the fans go, so beautiful. I liked attaching fans, so I moved on to attaching 3 to my case. These are the same fans that came with the AIO. They're Corsair, they look very cool and work very well. I bought them separately as a pack of 3. The case actually came with 2 random stock fans, but they didn't fit the aesthetic, so I destroyed them. Just kidding, they're somewhere downstairs. The screws are really fiddly and no matter how I did it, I just couldn't get them to go straight into the holes on the fans, and trust me, I spent a while on this. So for some, I just brute force them through the plastic at an angle that's definitely not recommended. As I'm putting the dust cover and front panel back on, you can see that the sides are white. Originally the side bezel was grey, so I spray painted it because how am I supposed to game properly if part of my PC is grey? In order to prepare for installing my power supply, I unscrewed the hard drive case because I didn't need it and I knew it would just get in the way of all the cables. I used the Corsair RMX 750, I think it's a 2018 version, and 750 big ones is more than enough to power my system. I think it's almost double the expected power draw, but I wanted to be safe and also leave some room in case I overclock or play intensive games. The most important cables are the 24-pin power connector and the CPU power. Usually there's only one for the CPU, but my motherboard is awesome, so I'm actually able to connect 2. It's kind of funny I say they're the most important because technically, if any cable is missing then the whole PC doesn't work. So actually, each cable is the most important cable. Isn't that nice? And there goes the PCIe for the GPU, but who cares about that? Here's me screwing in the PSU, not much to say about it. It wasn't the most exciting bit of the experience, so I give it a 4 out of 10. Connecting the 24 pin to the motherboard was pretty hard, but I wasn't surprised because literally everyone who's ever made a PC building video has said this. I needed a lot of force for this, but I was kind of worried because the motherboard bent a lot while I was trying. At the top you can see the two CPU cables. The reason I'm putting these cables in now is because I saw a video of a girl who used the same CPU cooler as me, and she installed it before doing the cables and ended up having to take off the radiator because there wasn't enough room for her to, you know, put the cables in. So do your research, kids. I also plugged in things like the audio cable and the front I/O connectors of the USBs and such, then moved on to installing the CPU cooler. Now, here comes the biggest mistake I made. I decided I could do it by myself, with the case standing up for whatever reason and the pump going on first. I had to balance the radiator that was attached while also applying even pressure so the CPU or thermal paste on the cooler didn't get messed up. And sadly I didn't record it, but trust me, it all went well. With the pump in, which is the bit that sticks to the top of the CPU, attaching the radiator was pretty easy. There are a couple of places you can put it, but I wanted it at the top as it's fully above the pump, which prolongs its lifespan, and as hot air rises, it would be easier for the fans to suck the hot air out of the PC. It also looks way better than any other option. Another thing I liked about getting them all Corsair was I could plug them into this thing called the Commander Core, which is just a glorified name for a fan hub. I also did a bit of cable management on the back, and to any normal person, this might look like a complete mess, but I know exactly what's going on, which is what matters at the end of the day. And now for the star of the show, the GPU. I got a 3060ti ASUS TUF OC V2. As you can see, it's pretty big, which is definitely going to cause it to sag a bit, so I need something to hold it up at some point. I actually got this secondhand on eBay. It was only used lightly for 2 months beforehand, so it's basically in brand new condition, and yeah, I didn't get scammed. It was also pretty heavy, but actually one of the easiest components to put in. What surprised me the most about PC building is how much force you have to put in sometimes to properly attach things to the motherboard. Even when you feel like it's about to break, sometimes you just have to keep going. Now, I didn't get custom power cables, I'm just using the ones that came with the PSU, so they could look better, but I'll probably replace them at some point. Okay, moment of truth. Something's lighting up. I haven't pressed this yet. Oh my god, yeah, it turned on first try. You can see here this RAM stick isn't lighting up. I could have sworn I put it in properly, but don't worry, I'll fix that later. Oh my gosh, that's, I mean, this seems to be working fine. I don't know how to tell if the pump is working. I'll just trust that that it is, but the monitor isn't turning on. I'm pressing the on button. I don't know, maybe I didn't like wire it properly. Now, I like to think I'm a pretty smart person. However, smart people make mistakes too sometimes. And in this case, that mistake was not plugging in the monitor to a socket. To be honest, that was the biggest mistake I made throughout the whole thing. For a first time build, I think it went pretty well, and I was able to get into the BIOS and start everything up. And here's the final thing, including the speakers I got because I knew the monitor ones would be pretty bad. They were 30 quid and were good for the price. I don't need crazy good audio quality from them or anything. And hey, look how cool they look. I skipped out on recording all the stuff like installing Windows, the drivers, and optimizing settings because I was just sat there installing them. Building a PC has been something I've really wanted to do for a long time now, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. I can play Minecraft at over 1000 FPS, and I mean, hey, what else would a girl want? Oh yeah, and there are a few scratches from Arthur's spray painting, so I just Tipex that up. Anyway, thanks for watching. Stick around cause I'll be uploading a lot more frequently now, and this PC will definitely be helping me out a lot.
But right now is hardly the time to go sinking a lot of money. Right now isn't what we're building for.